Ellen Cookman, and I'm so excited today to be sharing an interview that I recently did with Suzanne Bennett-Francisco. Suzanne is the president and CEO of Exceptional Rights Advocacy, where she provides advocacy, education, and training and supported decision-making to people with disabilities and those who love and serve them. Suzanne is also just a walking, talking expression of supported decision-making. She has 3 kids who have disabilities and are nonverbal, but they are all really terrific. And she's an amazing advocate for them. And she's also just a really great dynamic person. So without further ado, I take you to our interview together. Suzanne, it's so good to talk to you, and thank you for making the time. I was really hoping to pick your brain today about, I have so many families who come in and they're wondering, should we get a conservatorship over a child who's about to turn 18, or maybe they're in their early 20s. And I mentioned, do you know about supported decision-making? And they say, well, no. And I said, well, you need to find out more. And so I wanted to just put together some information, and you are the godmother of supported decision-making.
Who are you? Oh, sweet pea. I'm your fairy godmother.
You really did spearhead it. And so I'd love to hear your story and how, you and your team came up with this, how it works, what types of, situations does it work best in, all of that. So I'm just so curious to hear all about it.
Okay. Well, basically, I'm the president of Exceptional Rights Advocacy, and I have 3 adult children who have a rare form of congenital muscular dystrophy and autism. They're non-speaking. They are adults. I mentioned young adults. They're spunky, and they have a voice. And I started to learn about supported decision-making, in their early teenage age. I was trying to learn more about adults and working as a special education advocate. And I'm also a sister of a woman who had a disability, and I assisted her in her end-of-life care decisions, including the decision to donate her body to science. And this is before we really even knew about the concept of supported decision-making and how hard that decision is for my mother. And so somehow I was able to donate her body to science, and it was just my pleasure to honor her wishes, which actually wouldn't necessarily be my own decision. It was what she really wanted. So supported decision-making is something we do every day. We all go and look for mentors and doctors and sisters and other people to help us make decisions. And we are seen as wise. And so many times people with disabilities are just held to a different standard, what some people call a Dr. Spock standard. We're all entitled to go and find a doctor and say, I really trust this doctor, I choose him. And at no time do we ever know what the doctor knows. At no time, often, honestly, do we read the fine print. We say, okay, I choose this person to help me in this situation. Should I take some medicine? Should I have a surgery? What do you recommend, doctor? And so that's an example of how all of us may call a mechanic and use supported decision-making every day.
I think about that, Suzanne, because I've heard you talk about that. And I think, yeah, I have somebody I talk to when I'm having issues with my husband. I have somebody I talk to when, how do I run my law firm, right? Like I have different people, and we all do, right?
Yes, exactly. And so we all should be able to make decisions with and without support. And in making those choices, people should be assessed according to what they can do with the support that they need. And it's okay to need support, and we all need support. And I think so many times people with disabilities are presumed incompetent. And so we talk about the least dangerous assumption is to presume competence. And by that, I usually give an example of my son. I would just walk around the house asking rhetorical questions. I have three children, and he never would answer my question. And then one day, for the first time, he started shaking his head, yes and no. And I was like, he can't really be answering my question. And I posed the question again all different times, and he answered the same, yes. And I was like, oh my goodness, how frustrating must I be as a parent to think that I know what you know? And sometimes we, especially if there's a person with a disability that has a difference in showing affect, it's really often hard for us to understand, which is why I'm also very passionate about making sure people have access to communication, customized access to communication, and communication partners that they really choose and trust. Self-determination has been a best practice and studied for more than 40 years. And we know that people who have increased self-determination are likely to have better psychological health and have friends outside of family and to have better quality of life and more community integration. And in fact, there are studies that say women with intellectual disability are better able to recognize and resist abuse when they have increased self-determination. So I also talk about my daughter. My daughter's pretty sassy and spunky and bossy. And
just like she should be.
it's funny because I have 2 boys and 1 girl, and she's pretty strong-willed, my daughter. And so we've
Where did she get that from?
I know, I have no idea. We really need to give people with disabilities opportunities to learn about safety. And that's really, having self-determination and being able to say no and practice situations. So we've had a really wonderful behavior guy who was like a comedian, like anybody would get in his car, I would get in his car, come drive up to the house and ask my daughter to get in the car. And she was like, absolutely not. And she came directly to me with her communication device. And she's been asked by like park rangers in the park to get into their truck and drive her across the park. And she hauled herself across the entire park and refused in the truck.
Wow.
But, we can practice situations where, people are dating, and have people nearby. It depends, on the person. I think there's a misconception that when people are conserved, which is all that we parents really learn about, is conservatorship, and many professionals, that's all they learn about also, where we remove a certain set of rights from someone. I think people are often think that that is like a cape that keeps them completely safe, wherein there are a lot of stories in the news where people who are abused are often in isolated congregate settings. And more often than not, most of those people are conserved. And so really, the best thing to do is to teach people what to do in those situations. And again, conservatorship doesn't necessarily protect somebody in an instance where there's law enforcement. And conservatorship is supposed to be the last, most restrictive option. And so the law says alternatives should be considered. And so many times, teachers and doctors and healthcare providers, they just know about conservatorship. And so really, my kind of crusade is just to educate people and let them know that there are other options and how you can practice supported decision-making even before the most recent law was signed by the governor, by just saying that you're supporting an adult and putting in a legally binding document, like an IEP or an IPP or a power of attorney.
So practically speaking, let's say that I'm a parent. Well, I have a son who's 10 and who has high functioning autism. I don't plan on conserving him, but let's say, he's 17. I'm thinking about, would a conservatorship be appropriate? And then I hear about supported decision making. How would I approach that? Like, is there a group? Is there some paper that you fill out? How do you get that started?
Well, they can go to Disability Voices United, and there is a supported decision-making handbook that I helped create when I was working there, called With Support and Without the Court. And it's specifically for parents of adults with intellectual disabilities. And it explains kind of the different ways that the conservatorship system can be broken in many different ways. And people don't understand that they are the court-appointed conservator and not they are not in complete control. Really, the court is in control of that person. So it talks about the dangers that can happen and that it is supposed to be the last option. And then it gives you plain language examples and forms of how you can practice supported decision-making. So for instance, even in an IEP, the person they should be coming to their IEP meetings. And I think you'd be surprised how people with disabilities can choose to participate for however many amount of time and however they want to participate in those IEP meetings, they can say, I want my mother, Ellen, to help me support me in my education. And they could handwrite that onto that legal binding document or write it into the notes. And there can be goals. So education goals, and really, you don't want to start at 17. If you can practice earlier on and teach them to be a self-advocate, to have self-determination goals and practice person-centered planning. And so I think it really helps, kind of big, broad answer to your question, but it really helps to have other people having goals for that person, professionals in the school, private individuals, speech therapists, helping that person learn how to make decisions and what choices are important to them, and to take data, specifically in the instance if somebody has intellectual disability or a developmental disability, to have data on the choices they can make, want to learn how to make, and also video. So video can be very powerful to show, because people get nervous. All of us get nervous. And so often when, especially people with disabilities that feel like they're going to have to pass a test, it's good to videotape them in natural environments. So I always encourage that. But an IEP is a legal binding document. I'm sure you know these things. An individual program plan through the regional center is also a legal binding document. There are HIPAA forms and Social Security rep payee forms that they can sign and say, I want Ellen to support me in this area. And then powers of attorney for financial and healthcare decisions can also be formed. And it's important.
And we always recommend that, by the way. Once you turn 18, happy birthday, sign this document so somebody else can act on your behalf if needed. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. And to have it be in plain language and in the way that they can understand, which is what is really great about this new law, AB 1663. It actually acknowledges using images and people who use augmentative alternative communication, which is
right, because we all learn differently, don't we?
Yes, we do.
True.
We do.
And I don't know about you, but I mean, I think most parents, we just want our kids to be as happy and independent and successful as they can be. And it's going to look different for every kid. And that's okay, but we want them to reach their full potential and not just be limited. So I love that the spirit of that is really coming through with what you're saying. Now, Suzanne, if somebody wants to reach you or support your work, or even hire you as a consultant, how would they go about doing that?
Well, they can reach me at Suzanne Bennett, Suzanne Bennett, Bennett, 2022 at iCloud.com. And I'd be happy to help them. I have to say that my website is in process for exceptional rights advocacy, but you can email me, you can call me at 408-888-2629. And a really great resource is With Support and Without the Courts. .org, and it has information about AB 1663. You can see Marie Burgum there. You can see myself and my children there, and other self-advocates talking about how to use supported decision-making.
Well, Suzanne, thanks so much for coming and talking with all of us and sharing not just your wealth of knowledge, but your experience and your love and your passion. I think it just comes through so well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.